So good afternoon. If you're just joining us, we're going to wait a few minutes and let some people come on. When we go live, a notice goes out to those that subscribe. We want to give them a chance to log in. But I hope everyone's doing fine. We'll wait about 60 seconds before we start talking about the races in the 102nd District and the 12th Senate District. And we're not going to talk much about the 98th district because that's John Scanlon and he's unopposed. So I would put money on his winning re-election because that seems to be a lock. Good afternoon. It is 4:02. I'm Steve Mazzacane. Thanks for joining me. I apologize for not being live yesterday. I was working on something and couldn't get back to the camera fast enough. So we'll talk today about the two legislative races. We'll talk a little bit about the presidential race. As we always do for the last 2 weeks or so, start off with going to Real Clear Politics. So a quick look at the numbers. We have the battleground states are at 3.5, so it's getting a little bit closer. The general 7.7. General really doesn't matter, just to show us momentum overall, but it really doesn't matter. It's not relevant. Biden is up 3.5 in our battlegrounds. He's at 49, so he's not over that 50% threshold. Some of these polls, if we click on Biden 3.5, and we see, Trump is having a really hard time getting over this. Let's put it this way. He was at 45.4. Let me find the date on this. Which was a high mark for him September 1st. He did hit 45.7 October 27, 2 days ago. He's back down to 45.5. So we don't see him getting over that 46% mark. Remember this race as opposed to 4 years ago. 4 years ago, there were two candidates taking off some votes, Jill Stein and Gary something or other. And that doesn't exist here. So the inability to get much higher than that is a massive red flag in those battleground states. It does seem to have some momentum. If we look at some of the polling, when I saw Biden had a lead in one state, they're certainly tighter. But Trump needs to basically win Pennsylvania, Florida, and North Carolina. That's going to be hard to do. It's just going to be hard to do. So, and we talked long about momentum. We want to see that 5 points go to 4, go to 3, go to 2, and then be in that 1 to 2 range come election day. It's unlikely that will happen now. We're not seeing the momentum continue for Trump. So this may be a very different outcome than 4 years ago. Again, I think every journalist, every political scientist, everybody looking at this is doing so with this cloud of 4 years ago over them, where everybody was taken by surprise, barring a few people. So I'm not seeing the momentum that I said we needed to see a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, as we get late in the race. That said, some polls are still coming in that are after the debate. Biden certainly made a mistake when it comes to oil and fracking in Pennsylvania. Most people I've talked to says there seems to be more energy on the Trump side. However, this all comes down to 6 or 7 states. And to be even more specific, probably 5 or 6 counties in those 6 or 7 states. So that's a very small, God help you if you're in those counties, because you're getting a commercial every 30 seconds and mailers like crazy, billions of dollars being spent, which is just nuts on politics. But if you are a Biden supporter, you're probably looking at this with a little, able to take a little bit of a breath. You're not going to relax until after Election Day or a couple of days after that. But the momentum that Trump had those final week and a half or so 4 years ago does not seem to be taking place now, at least in the polling. Again, we have that massive question of how accurate is the polling. And if it's off, let's go back to the list again. If that polling is off, say, 4 points, here's the most recent battlegrounds. Florida, Biden plus 1.4. So let's suppose that it's off 2 points and Trump takes Florida. Pennsylvania, Biden is 4.3. So Biden would hold that. Michigan, he's going to win Michigan. Biden's up 8.2 in Michigan. Wisconsin, Biden's up 6.4. These are aggregates. The North Carolina, Biden's up 0.6. So possibly Trump can take Florida, North Carolina, but if you're not going to take Pennsylvania, you're not going to win. Arizona has it tied. So he can win some of these battleground states, but he has such a huge margin to get over. Um, you can't count this guy out because you never know. I know there seems to be energy on the Trump side. I get it. But the political science part of me says we have polls, and the pollsters have adjusted their methodology to kind of counteract what happened 4 years ago. We'll see if that's correct in a couple days. So, but the momentum we were looking for, if you were a Trump supporter, I don't see. And we can leave it at that for now. We can come back to that. Will that play a role down ticket in some of these big races? Will it help any the lower seats? I don't know. I mean, it is safe to say Connecticut is a Biden. It's going to go Biden. It's going to go blue. It's safe to say Guilford's going to go blue. Brantford's going to go blue. Brantford will be closer than Guilford. Guilford will be significantly. Madison's interesting. It's been pushing more blue recently. Will they go? We'll see. We'll see pretty soon. I don't know that we're going to have. Let's ask yourself a very simple question. Are there significantly more voters for Trump this year than there were 4 years ago? I have a hard time believing there are. There may be some that voted for one of those third-party candidates that said, "Okay, I'll go to Trump this time," but I just don't see that number being significant, and I think turnout's going to be high. Democrats have a lot of their votes in already with early voting. Election day will certainly lean towards Republicans. But late in the race, what tends to happen if it's somebody's a clear winner or clearly ahead, people tend to gravitate a little more, 1 or 2% may go over to that side. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But let's go back to I always like to look at the gambling numbers on Real Clear Politics. Right now, latest betting odds is 63% to 35%. So it's about the same, and no significant changes in the betting odds. If you see that top battleground number drop to 2 in the next couple of days, so Monday at 2, it could be very, very interesting come, election day. If that stays at 3.5, then momentum really isn't taking place. And the momentum Trump had 4 years ago to finish the race isn't really the case. Steve Sullivan, are there really any Biden supporters or just anti-Trump people? There is truth to this race is either for or against Trump in general. Remember, the Democratic Party has rejected Biden multiple times. He's run for president multiple times. But this is a Trump election. Either you're for or against Trump. And that's really what it comes down to. Denise, we're out there. Kamala supporters too. And then we hope we'll have an answer in a few days. Please, Lord, don't let this be another Bush Gore. I'll tell you something, Denise, for the betterment of the country. Either way, I hope it's a blowout. If all the polls are wrong and Trump wins in a landslide, that is better than having Bush Gore again. Because Bush Gore, with the way the heightened emotion right now, could be like serious rioting, militia bullshit kind of territory. And, I would rather see Trump win. I'm not hid this. I'm voting for Biden, but I'd rather see Trump win in a landslide than this be a hanging Chad situation in Florida, Pennsylvania, North Carolina. Senator Anwar of Connecticut said we need to raise Connecticut taxes to get out of our fiscal problems. More of the same tax and spend that is destroying our state. I hope Connecticut voters wake up. And then Steve, I hope there's a clear winner, not that there's a clear winner. And that's what I kind of agree with that sentiment. With regards to taxes in Connecticut, there's going to be taxes. I mean, we fought off tolls when I actually supported tolls. We fought those off. COVID can't come and all this unemployment get paid and then not people say, all right, we're going to have to tax to pay for it. That's what government exists for. When we have these downturns, that's when the money has to go out, but that money has to be replenished somehow. So I'm quite sure you're going to get some new taxes, maybe a new sales tax, higher income tax, or maybe the discussion about tolls. But let's talk about the races. The 102nd district and the 12th state Senate district. And let's talk about the 102nd. We have Robin Comey versus Mark Riccio. In completely, there's no secret here. I have endorsed Robin Comey already for a few reasons. But the main reason is that I don't believe Mark Riccio is a qualified person for the ballot. Now, anybody can get on a ballot. You have to be, whatever. You can get on a ballot. But when I talk about that, I'm talking about just qualifications. I know this person personally. I've had dealings with him that are less than civil. The language, the things he has posted have been sexist and racist. I'll tell you what, the guy loses a sports bet, drinks too much, and then rambles on social media. And since this election has started, he has posted numerous times on Brantford 7, on my personal page. I've asked him to stop. He claims he's being bullied or threatened or whatever the case is. It is the equivalent of dealing with a 5-year-old. And no matter what his political stances are, this is not somebody that should be representing the town. And the concern that I have, as we looked over his record, if you take out the last few months, he's missed about 42% of meetings on an RTM level. So that's approximate because we can't get every single one of them. But he's not someone who made going to meetings a regular thing, representing the RTM. He has posted numerous things on social media that were sexist. He kept posting this bagel lady thing about Christine Cohen, despite being warned on the anti-Semitic feel of that over and over and over again. Now, when someone decides they're a candidate, they or someone they hire goes in and wipes as much as they can off social media. So you're not going to see much of a record of that now. But he's just not qualified. And the issue that I have more than anything is I have pride in our town. I live in Brantford. I'm proud of Brantford. I'm proud of the job the first selectman is doing. I'm proud of all the things that are positive in this town. And by the way, if anybody questions my ability to support a Republican, I'm a strong supporter of Jamie Cosgrove. That said, this is someone who has a history of saying really stupid, inappropriate things. And my worst fear is this guy somehow gets in office, comes out of a meeting after a heated debate in caucus or what have you, and gives the dumbest quote to the Current or dumbest quote to Connecticut Mirror, and just is an embarrassment to the town. Even before we get to stances on issues, I question putting him in a position to represent the 20 or so thousand people in the 102nd district. That said, we go to the other side. I can see issues with at least one of Robin Comey's votes. I would not have voted for that police bill. But Robin Comey went into that seat 2 years ago as someone who was focused on education, had a clear, documented history in education, and she has kept her word. She's worked on education bills, and she's done what we expected her to do up there. You may not like her vote on the police bill. I get that. That's a legitimate argument, and we'll talk about that too. But she's done what we asked of her. Then, this year, you can't count from a bill standpoint, but when asked to represent constituents to solve unemployment issues, she's been responsive. I have a lot of emails and messages from people where she's helped people, done the right thing. So in 2 years, I think she has done the best she could under what are very difficult circumstances. And I appreciate the fact that someone goes there with a very specific agenda. Knows I'm going to go there and do all these things is stupid. She went there to do things on EpiPens and helping kids with food allergies and working on education issues, and she's done that. She's kept her word. And when she was asked to respond in a crisis to people who were having issues with unemployment, issues with jobs, she did that as well. So I certainly believe she deserves 2 more years, and then we'll judge her at 2 more years after that. The issue on the police bill, let me just make this I would not have voted for the police bill. And this is going to apply to when we talk about Comey and when we talk about Cohen and Scanlon. I would not have voted for it. I get the intent. I certainly get the political need to do so. Here's the problem. In Connecticut, the Democrats are going to have the majority. So if you are someone who believes that bill was wrong and you want changes to that bill, whether you agreed with the vote or not, having someone in the majority is a help. Mark Riccio, if you went up there, would be in the minority, would have no say about anything. So in talking to Comey, I think she gave a terrible quote. I agree, where she said it was a brave vote to make. Voting with your party isn't brave. I get it. That's an ideal. It's a poor statement, poor use of words. But to explain that vote a little bit more, you're voting for the state, not necessarily for Branford. It was an indictment on Branford's police department. It was a realization that we have police departments in the state that are not up to Branford's standards. And her vote was a statewide vote. I would not have voted for it. I'll be clear. She can deserve criticism for that vote. But if you're looking to get changes to that vote, practical changes to it, having someone in the majority is going to be much more helpful to you if you're a police officer. So on that election, and that's the last I'll talk about. I've limited talking about that race because I didn't want to make this just a bash Mark Riccio thing. I just do not feel, and I'm not going to hide this, I do not feel he's qualified to represent the people of this district. The campaign has been decent. There's been a lot of false claims. The regionalization thing we've talked about, but I just don't feel that way. So I am voting for Robin Comey. She's in my district, and I am endorsing her. Let's go to the Christine Cohen, Joe Laporta race. So late in races, when we have elections, there's typically a series of mailers that come out. And when someone is a challenger, they start usually early on attacking, and putting out claim after claim after claim. That's fine. That's politics 101. You have to do that when you're the challenger. Usually the second to last mailer that goes out is what's called a comparison mailer, where you put your stances and you put your opponent's stances side by side and say, he or she did this and I would do this. And it's usually the opposite. And then the final mailer is always a happy mailer, like it's my family and we're happy and we're loving and all this other stuff. The issue with that comparison mailer is it's often the mailer where the most false claims are made because the opponent doesn't have a significant amount of time to back those up. And so Laporta did that. Now, there's some claims we have to talk about first. All of the Republicans that were challenging ran on this regionalization. We don't want to regionalize our schools. Nobody's regionalizing your schools. There was a bill discussing it, and it turned into a study. That's a good thing. I want to study about regionalizing schools because I want to look at areas that schools can combine services. Can we combine school bus contracts? Can we combine food service contracts? Can we combine, I don't know, whatever? Are there ways to save money? Studies in that respect are good. They're relatively inexpensive. They find some ways. Republicans have pushed this idea that Branford's going to regionalize with East Haven and Guilford's going to regionalize with Madison, or none of that's true. No one is entertaining that. There may be a small group of people in inner city towns that are entertaining that, but it's not, a bill was proposed and then became a study to look into it, which I want to happen. You can't, by the way, be a Republican, yell about spending, and then say, wait, I don't want to discuss ways to save money. You can't do it. You can't yell and scream, oh my God, our taxes are too high and they're going to go up and I won't vote for any of this. But if I see a town that can save some money, I won't do it. That's nonsense. That's bullshit. And so the whole regionalization thing, and by the way, if you're wondering about this, back when this so-called bill was proposed, I don't remember any Republicans saying anything. I don't remember Fasano in front of the Capitol saying, oh my God, they want to regionalize your schools. Oh my God, they want to combine East Haven and Branford. I don't remember any of that because it never happened. Nobody viewed any bill as regionalizing Branford and East Haven or Guilford or Madison or anything. Nobody viewed it that way. And a study would help us look and see maybe there are areas that should be. Considering the fact that Mark Riccio keeps putting out that he's going to protect Branford's funds because we're taking towns and we're giving it to other money from Branford to other towns. Okay, then why wouldn't you want to look at ways to save other areas in other towns? If we have Branford has 28,000 people. If we have two towns next to each other with 10,000 each, should we look at combining them? Or should we keep two superintendents and two finance directors? What makes sense? If the state is giving those towns $500,000 and we can save that $500,000 instead, doesn't it make sense to at least do a study and look at that? And suddenly, oh my God, our schools are at risk. We're regionalizing these schools. Where was Len Fasano when that was being proposed? Where were all the high-ranking Republicans when that was being proposed? Because I don't remember anything about it. it became a political ploy. So that claim is nonsense. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't hold up. But I'm going to look at some of the other claims that have been made by Joe Laporta against Christine Cohen. A lot have to do with the environment. A lot have to do with gun safety, fire violence, and one has to do with the electricity shutoff bill, which I'm going to talk about in more detail. To understand what Laporta is doing, I have to explain to you the... also, Kelly, if two towns want to regionalize contracts for something, what is stopping them today? A lack of a study, Kelly. If the state does a study and shows them the savings, they're more likely to do it. That's how it works. It's almost impossible, by the way, to get two different unions from two different towns to work together. The job of unions is to protect their own jobs, right? So when we start regionalizing things, what happens? We eliminate some jobs. Right? The administrators' unions would go crazy if we eliminated one superintendent. So it does take a state study to say, listen, here, we have ways to save money here. Oh, and we're giving you $500,000 in ECS dollars that's coming from other towns, which Riccio says he's against. Before we give you that money, show us this savings. That's what it does. The state's giving these towns ECS money. We pay sales tax. We pay money to the state. The state then redistributes it to these towns. If the state sees clear areas those towns can save money, let's have a study, document it, and then implement those things before those towns get ECS money. That's smart. That saves money. That's how business and politics is done. Period. Now let's go to these claims by Laporta. Before we get to the claims, we have to explain one key feature of how the sausage is made in Hartford, and not just Hartford, but every legislature in the country and Washington. When you get to a legislative session and you propose a bill, there is a deadline to propose a bill. It has to be in by a certain date. But a lot of the discussions on a bill or a lot of issues may come up after that deadline. So what happens a lot is a legislator will put forth a bill knowing that bill isn't going anywhere. Most bills don't go anywhere. But you need to get a bill on the record before the deadline. And then if something comes up afterwards, you go back and you propose what's called a strike all amendment. And that is, we're going to strike all the wording in that amendment, except for the enacting portion, and then replace it with something new. So you can have a bill that says it's about tolls, but it's not really about tolls. It's about something else, right? Because of they had to get in before a deadline, so a strike all amendment went out there. What Laporta is doing is posting a lot of stances of Christine Cohen, which were really strike all amendments. It's dishonest. And taking stances here, saying she has stances she doesn't actually have. So first of all, the anti-police bill, okay, you can go after on that. That's fair game. Got it. The sanctuary cities aspect, I'm reading some of these because he was just sent out. Reinstating the statewide firearms trafficking task force. Enacting tougher penalties for the theft of a firearm. He keeps putting no under her categories. Christine Cohen is the Moms Demand Action candidate, by the way. Moms Demand Action is a group basically from Guilford, and they're as loud as can be about gun laws. To say she's not for tougher penalties for theft of our firearm is funny. I mean, now I have some issues with Moms Demand Action and the way they were. I mean, I saw that debate 2 years ago between her and Greenberg, and they were obnoxious to say the least. But besides that, to put that claim for her name is nonsense. How you vote on a strike all bill and then say it's your stance is not legitimate. It's crazy. You want to go after her on that police bill? Okay. Fair game. How you stand on that police bill may be how you vote. That's okay. But there's a million things here that make no sense. I'm also going to go a step further, and I'm going to talk about one particular line he has in here. I'm going to read it to you. It says, raising our electricity rates by requiring paying customers to pay for non-paying customers through more stringent requirements on utilities before they can shut off a customer for non-payment. And then says, she doesn't say how she voted, but says she sponsored the bill. So, to those of you who follow me personally on Facebook, everybody's welcome to. I don't care. It's all open. This bill started with me. And it started with a hearing in Hartford that had to do with they were using shutoffs on electricity to give an example of how bad the economics were. And so my question was, okay, if people are getting their power shut off, what percentage of those people had their power restored within a day or two? And the argument for that is, if they can pay it in a day or two, then why weren't they able to pay it by whatever deadline? And so my proposal was that we mandate that a text message be sent out, just like your credit card company does, just like AT&T does, just like every other major utility does, that before a shutoff is done, you have to send a text message. This isn't crazy. This isn't unusual. This happens with a million companies. I get text messages all the time. Your new bill is ready. Your bill is overdue. Your bill is whatever it is. All right. And then we transfer money and pay it. So the question is, if someone got their power shut off and were able to pay it and get it restored the next day, if with proper notice, would they have been able to avoid their power being shut off? Yes, clearly. What the energy company does is they don't send you a text message. They send you a letter. Most people aren't checking their mail anyway. They don't send you a text message. And therefore, you get home one day, it's shut off, you have to pay the bill, and you have to pay some fine. And that's nonsense. And so the argument was, let's make sure people know in advance when a shutoff's coming, the day before or the day of. That's fine. Nothing crazy there. And avoid those shutoffs. There's no additional cost to other people. There's nothing crazy about that bill. It's a logical bill, but this is an example of sending out mailers that are misleading, that are dishonest. And so we have a series of statements here. You want to go after on the police bill, so be it. You want to go after on plastic bags, so be it. On one case, they went after on the recycling plant in Hartford shutting down. Yeah, because tipping fees like doubled or 50% increase. It's crazy. There's got to be a solution to that. But from an environmental standpoint, environmentalists were for that being shut down. There's a huge environmental impact to burning trash. And that's one of his claims that he's made. So late in a race, it's not uncommon to do this, especially when you're the challenger. But so many of these claims are nonsense. We're not running on what his platform is. We're running on, I don't like the way she voted, but you're saying things that she didn't do. You're alluding stances to her she doesn't have. She's pretty pro-environment. She's for stricter gun laws. At times, I don't agree with it. But then you can't take that from her come election season. And you can't take a vote on a strike-all amendment, which has nothing to do with the content of the bill, and then say that's your political stance. It's not fair. It's dishonest. Now, to go back to some of these, Richard, if there are ways to save money with two school districts, you don't need to get the state involved. Where were you when Cohen had all the false claims against Greenberg? By the way, I spoke a lot about that race 2 years ago. So asking me where I was on camera talking about that race. However, you do need the state to get involved because the state gives them ECS money. The state gives them ECS money. You understand that? The state takes money in tax revenue and puts money towards education and distributes it to each town. So if you give money to a business, invest $10,000 into a business, do you think you should have any say in how that business is run? If that town says, I'm not regionalizing, I'm not considering it, I'm not even looking at cost savings, and I want no ECS dollars, okay, I'll exclude you from the study. But yeah, the state should have a say, and we should have a say. If there's two towns on the other side of the state that have 5,000 people in it, but their own superintendent and their own finance director, they could easily combine with other towns. I want that because it's my money going there. Of course the state should be involved. They're the ones distributing the money. How can you be a Republican talking about, I want to save money, and then be so against saving money? How is that possible? There's no relevance to ECS dollars if two towns want to share a bus contract. If two towns share a bus contract and they save money, they need less from the state. Are we stupid now? Is this how stupid we are? If you save money doing X, you need less money to do Y. Are we stupid? Don't give me this shit. You're just making stuff up now. Give me a break. Denise, replying to Kathy, this document deals with housing authorities. What does it have to do with forest? No, it has nothing to do with forest regionalization. How the fuck can you say saving money has nothing to do with ECS dollars? What fucking planet do you have to be on that saving money has nothing to do with ECS dollars? You're lying your ass off. Give me a break. Jesus Christ. So listen, I'll go with the two elected officials that stand by their vote and didn't lie. I'll go with Robin Comey and I'll go with Christine Cohen. I had issues with Christine Cohen 2 years ago and how she ran her race. But she's done a good job. She's responded the same way Comey has to issues during the shutdown. She's done her job well. ECS dollars are money that goes to the town to pay bills for the town. That's what it does. If a town can save money, the state should know it. I don't give a fuck about the language. Enough. Stop lying. Jesus Christ. How can the state not care? The state, you give money to its town and say, listen, I don't care if you're wasting money in 47 other areas. Don't care. Doesn't matter to me. I'm just going to give you money no matter what. What planet are you on? What planet? If you give money to a friend of yours and you see them wasting money in another area, you don't have a right to say something? If you put money into a business and you see them wasting money on food costs, you don't have a restaurant, you see them wasting money, you shouldn't say anything? How drunk do we have to be this dumb? Period. That's what it goes to. It goes to pay those bills. And I'll tell you what, Brantford pays more than we get back. Madison pays more than we get back. Guilford pays more than we get back. And as such, we as towns have a right to know that other towns are using money wisely. Period. And if those towns can save money on a bus contract or not having a duplication of services, then I want to know it. Period. The regionalization argument is nonsense, and everybody knows it's nonsense. Every Republican knows it's nonsense. And no representative, Democrat or Republican, is going to vote to regionalize Brantford in East Haven. And the nonsense ad that Riccio's been running are dishonest. There is no fear of regionalizing with anybody. As early as next year, one of them said. What are you smoking? You're selling fear and bullshit. I get it. From a political strategy, I get it. You're the challenger. You have to do that stuff. And let's not make any pretense, any jokes here. Democrats would do the exact same thing had they be in that situation. But right now, in this situation, we're seeing Riccio and we're seeing Laporta lie. That's what we're seeing. Period. Why does it not have something to do with it? I don't understand the logic, the nonsense of election season. The week before the election, we have false mailers going out, ridiculous claims. No, don't bother saving money. I'm just going to keep giving it to you. And then you go around talking about, I'm not raising taxes. We're going to cut spending. We're going to, but we don't want to talk about any ideas and any ways to cut spending. We don't want to study ways that schools can share resources. We don't want to study that. We want to save money, but not do anything difficult. That's nonsense. And it's false and it's bullshit. It's election season crap. So yes, Robin Comey and Christine Cohen should be reelected. They did their jobs. And during this crisis, they excelled at their jobs. And I don't see mailers from them lying. Now, if they're behind 2 years from now in a race, will I? Yeah. And if they do, we'll call them out then. But this year, in this race, we haven't seen it. Period. All right. We're back on Monday where we'll talk finally about the presidential race. I want to leave these races behind. We can't be crazy. We can't be absurd. Saving money takes real guts. You're going to have to look people in the eye and say, you don't have a job. That's what it takes to save money. In election season, nobody wants to do that. I'm for saving money. I'm for regionalizing where we can. If there's a study that shows me a way that we can save some money, including losing some jobs, I'm okay with that. But you can't have it both ways. I want to save money, but I don't want to do anything difficult. No, doesn't work that way. I get during election season, you want to send out mailers that say certain things that are meant to instill fear. I get that. Everybody gets that. Nobody's stupid here. But it's my job to call that out. And I will call it out both ways. And I'll tell you what, if you don't think I called it out 2 years ago, call Adam Greenberg and ask him if I called it out 2 years ago. And in 2 years, if Comey and Cohen do that, I'll do it then. Right now, we're seeing the Republicans with this very coordinated effort working to mislead people. It's wrong. Okay, guys, that just pissed me off a little bit. So, look, guys, I hope everyone has a great weekend. And I will be back on Monday at 4 o'clock. I'll see you then. Have a great night.